Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is it was supposed to be simple in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 36, An Attack from the Shadows. I discovered a few more disguised as servants, but we have yet to take any alive, Hubert informed Edelgard when he walked into the throne room. We should still be careful. If that roar is any indication, I doubt they'll be giving up soon. Has the guard been dispatched to the city? Edelgard asked as she looked around the room, keeping an eye for any vantage points where the Agarthans might strike. Yes, and it seems the Knights of Syros are assembling to attack our mutual enemy as well. Hubert couldn't help but smirk. I never thought I'd say this, but it seems they are useful for something. It seems they sprung the trap far too soon, Petra noted, a blade at her side that her men provided. Hey, I brought the church people. Shay called out, a hand raised in greeting while she led the church people in with her. Edelgard, where is Byleth? Rhea asked as she approached with Geralt and some Knights of Syros in tow. She went with an escort to her room to inform her retinue and grab her sword, Edelgard responded, briefly wishing she could get her own armor and weapon, before shaking her head. She'll be here soon enough. She better, Rhea huffed. It was faintly amusing for Edelgard to see the former archbishop pouting, though the circumstances made it harder to enjoy. Though I must say, I did not expect the Agarthans to act so brash, Hubert mused, one might think they're desperate. Humph. These monsters may prefer making others do their bidding, but do not be mistaken. They will send their own out in droves to destroy whoever they are targeting, Rhea informed, a harsh look in her eyes. It only makes sense they're attacking, Shamir commented, you drove them out of the city, so they're bound to be angry about that. The fact that both former and current archbishop are here means they probably saw it was their best chance at revenge. I knew it was a mistake letting her travel into the Empire. We can scold her later, Geralt muttered, before noticing Yuri and Happy coming up to them. Where's the kid? Well, good news is Balthus and Constance are with her, Happy noted. The unfortunate news being that she decided to head into the city to fight the demonic beasts. What? Rhea screamed as she rounded on Yuri. How could you let her go out there? I didn't, she was out the door before any of us responded. I wouldn't worry too much though, she knows what she's doing. His reassurances didn't seem to register at all as Rhea immediately looked to Geralt. We need to find her right now. Right, Eloise, you're with us. Shamir, you stay dash. Before Geralt could finish giving an order, the archer pulled out her bow and nocked an arrow. For a brief moment, Edelgard felt her heart stop when it seemed Shamir was aiming straight at her. Then the arrow was loosed and it went whistling straight past the Emperor. She heard a clang as it hit a dagger in midair and Edelgard let out the breath she didn't realize she was holding, right before Shay moved and caught a swinging sword with her own blade as an assassin seemed to form out of thin air. Ah, here I was hoping to deal with our little Emperor just like that, a cruel voice rang out, instantly putting everyone else on their guard as they drew their weapons. No matter, this will be more fun. With that, several more Agarthans dropped down, their blades clashing with the guards as they rushed towards Edelgard. In the shadows of the room, Kronyat whirled a knife in hand, ready to get revenge for the humiliation she suffered. Hey, Byleth, wait up! Balthus shouted as he chased after the archbishop with a morose Constance slumped over his shoulder. Not that Byleth seemed to hear him since she just kept sprinting, sword in hand, and Constance definitely wasn't helping. Leave me behind, my body can distract the beasts while you save her. Case in point. Not a chance. Balthus shouted again, besides, I've seen you fight while you're like this. I know you can back me up. Your confidence in my worthless self is tragically unfounded, my undeserved friend. I also know your legs work, so how about you stop with the downer talk before I let you down? My feeble legs could never keep up with your majestic stride. I'm starting to wonder if you just want to get out of walking. Before Constance could respond, Byleth swung her sword, the blade extending and cutting through a cloaked mage before they could attack a storefront, the magic in his extended hand cutting off as he was split in half. Come on, you dastards! The Fellstar is right here, waiting to end all of you. Byleth shouted, getting the attention of the nearby Agarthans, causing chaos. Don't get them all to focus on you. Balthus shouted as he set Constance down, before brandishing his fists. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Byleth responded as several Agarthans turned their attention towards Byleth, their gazes honing in on the relic sword she wielded. It really is the Fel Star. That shouldn't be possible. Who cares? Kill her and we'll be legends, declared one very confident Agarthan as he brandished a spear crackling with lightning. Though before any of them could do anything, Byleth let everything stop. The world around her froze and she took a moment to quickly look at every Agarthan present in the square, noting what weapons they carried, which ones seemed to be armored, and the ones that wore the blackbird masks that marked their mages. Then she moved, quickly and efficiently as she slashed through gaps in the armored members of the group. You could have taken them out without this, Suthis chided, her expression disapproving. Can't risk it, too many civilians, Byleth argued, keeping her focus. She still remained mostly level-headed as she decapitated the last Agarthan in the area, before time resumed. Whoa! Balthus yelled, taking a step back as every black-clad invader he could spot fell dead. Warn us next time so we know that's coming. Ah, sorry. Byleth apologized while she scanned the area around them, her attention more on the fight than soothing her friends. Focus on helping anyone who needs it. My apologies, but my magic won't be any help with rescuing. My other self has not focused on such careful magic, Constance said, before casting Bolting, which hit a demonic beast down the street. While the powerful lightning strike didn't kill the monster, it did draw its attention away from the restaurant it was clambering on top of. Ah, so does that mean I'm on rescue duty? Balthus complained, before he sighed and moved over to clear rubble away from some of the damaged storefronts, letting the trapped civilians get out. Okay, Constance, this guy seems tougher than the usual bunch. Get a spell ready, and I'll tear its armor off, Byleth said as the crimson demonic beast began to charge them. I only hope I don't disappoint, Constance muttered as she prepared a Sagittai. Taking a deep breath, Byleth waited for the beast to get closer, letting her friend get ready, before shouting, now. Right as the Sagittai went flying, it froze in midair when Byleth paused time again and rushed forward to slash at the beast, though frown made its way onto Byleth's face when her sword didn't cut through its armor. That was rare, though it seemed more like the armor was just that tough, rather than it explicitly countering her sword. Tightly gripping the sword of the creator, she began to slash rapidly, making cracks appear across its eerie helm. Once enough damage was done, she wrapped the blade around its head and yanked just as time began again, causing the helm to rip apart as the beast roared in agony, its grotesquely near-draconic head bared to the world. Which in turn meant a fully powered Sagittai crashed against its face. How fortuitous that fate turned against such a creature, Constance murmured as the beast fell, its skull fully blasted open. Okay, pretty sure that's the strongest one they have here, Byleth said, before pausing as she saw people coming out of the restaurant. Dorothea, Monica. Turning at the sound of her voice, Dorothea grinned and began to wave at her while Monica just looked surprised to see the Archbishop there. I have to say, I'm always glad to see you Byleth, but I'm really glad right, Dorothea grunted as she suddenly found herself getting tackled off her feet, right as a Bolganone melted a wall they had been standing by. Blinking, she looked down to see Byleth holding her and Monica, before the Archbishop set them down and whipped around, brandishing her sword at two Grimoires in the middle of the street. I must say, I didn't expect the Fel Star to be here, spoke one of the mages, her mask in ivory white in contrast to the usual blackbird masks. Despite the destruction around her, her voice was almost clinical with a faint hint of interest present in it. Though her existence does explain why the abomination stepped down from her position. Try to focus, Pitacus, her companion in a matching red mask instructed, crimson runes appearing at her hands as she readied another spell. We're here to kill the Archbishop ruling over these revolting beasts, not muse over her nature. I understand that, Bias, I'm just intrigued. She's already displayed some unusual power thus far with how rapidly she appears to move. She tapped her own mask at its chin, somehow looking thoughtful despite the full face covering. Also, technically, our job was to act as a distraction. Bias audibly sighed. Do you have to be so pedantic? The beasts have already arrived to the slaughter, let's just butcher them. Byleth growled, her eyes narrowed as she stepped forward. Dorothea, Monica, you should head to the palace. Edelgard might need your help. You mean there are more, Of course there are more, the one with the white mask just said they were a distraction. Monica realized, before flinching back as Byleth quickly moved to intercept a fireball. You shouldn't be talking during a fight, beast. Bias called out with a mix of contempt and amusement, though she paused when Pitacus put a hand on her forearm. No, let them chat. It's better if they waste their time. TCH, fine. Byleth still kept an eye on them, her sword raised and ready as she gestured to the two ladies behind her. Go ahead. I can handle them just fine. It would be very inconvenient to Her Majesty if you were to die, Monica responded, giving Byleth a short nod before she hurried towards the palace, though Dorothea hesitated. Byleth, are you? I'm sure. Besides, I told you to look out for yourself, didn't I? She tried for a smile, attempting to be reassuring. Dorothea swallowed her concerns and nodded. Please, be careful. I promise, I will. It was strange. She felt almost relieved when Dorothea headed off. Though maybe that was because she could still see that moment where the woman she loved died trying to protect her. At least that couldn't happen if she was far away. I see you are disregarding my presence entirely, as is proper, Constance murmured, and Byleth actually felt a pang of guilt as she realized she really did forget the blonde was still there. It's okay, Constance. I know you'll be great backup. So you do need backup. And that brought Balthus over, a big grin on his face as he took in the pair of Grimoires. So these two are the big bosses we gotta take down? Can't say I like beating up ladies, but they did let that big beast loose, right? They did, Byleth confirmed, before focusing again, keeping her mind on the battle and how best to move with her two allies in play. Balthus, when I move, go for the Grimoire I'm not targeting. Keep up the pressure and don't let them get a chance to regain momentum. Constance, keep your eyes open and your spells ready. If I or Balthus back off for any reason, that's when you should strike. Don't cast if we're in the line of fire. Got it, boss. I doubt I will be of much use, but I will lend my meager efforts to fulfill your request. There's something wrong with that one, Bias murmured, pretty obviously pointing towards Constance before she straightened. All right, you good now? Done with your strategy meeting? Byleth scowled. Yes, we are. Fantastic. Pitacus cheered, clasping her palms together as Byleth noticed the rings of sigils formed around her hands. Then I thank you, Felstar, for allowing us the time to prepare our own attacks. Even with the mask, it was obvious she was smiling. Abraxas. Byleth felt her eyes widen and she quickly pushed Constance away from herself before leaping back, though the beam of light that blasted down from the sky still scored a decent hit on her as it exploded. She could feel something different about it from usual faith magic, something distinctly wrong in the faintly orange gleam, but then she had to move again as the road erupted in flames from an unleashed Ragnarok. So that's supposed to be the abomination that destroyed our people. Bias scoffed, what a joke. I wonder if she has a limit to those strange bursts of speed. Pitacus mused in the meantime, before quickly blocking a bolt of lightning from the morose Constance. Broken or not, that beast is a dangerous one. If you think Constance is a beast, wait until you get a load of the unstoppable king of grappling. Balthus called out as he rushed through the fire and flames, his cocked back fist rushing forward in a brutal punch that Bias ducked under before catching him in the chest with a fireball. Oh, would you look at that? It seems you've been stopped, and then she actually caught a hook to the jaw as Balthus punched through the plume of smoke. Nah, you can't take me down with just that. Bias. Pitacus yelped, immediately forming a wall of light to block off Balthus as she cast a healing spell on her sister, who grimaced while she rubbed her cracked mask. It's fine, I'm fine. He caught more of the beak than my face, and in a quick moment, she pushed Pitacus away from her right as the sword of the creator speared through the smoke and scored a cut along her arm, making her hiss at the sudden pain. Damn it, she actually made it through. Byleth gave the Grimoire an answer to her question as she leapt through the burned street and swung for the Agarthan, who quickly launched a blast of fire at the Felstar and ducked when the blade just cut straight through the flames. Bias quickly backed up, letting loose more bolts of fire as Byleth casually batted them aside, her sword dispersing the flames with each contemptuous slash until she extended her blade and caught the mage across the chest, earning a pained grunt from the Agarthan as blood seeped into her gown. It wasn't long before Bias was backed against a wall, though the cornered rat was still very dangerous, and she quickly gathered more and more flames in her hands, trying to get off one more massive conflagration. Byleth wasn't about to let her, and she thrust her blade forward. No. And then her eyes went wide as the Agarthan in the white mask shoved her companion out of the way. There was another flash of light, a quickly raised shield of magic that Byleth knew she could stab right through, and she could see it shattering as the world seemed to slow. And yet, instead of plunging into the Agarthan mage's chest, something threw her off, and the blade sank into the wall beside Pitacus instead. The mage didn't waste any time, raising her hand and unleashing a blinding light that Byleth flinched at. There really was something wrong with it, but she moved quickly, bringing her blade up to block a follow-up attack that didn't come. And in her blurry vision, she saw the white-masked mage hurry over to her red-masked companion, pulling her up and speaking hurriedly. "You're going to be okay, I swear you'll be. It's fine, it's just a scratch. Don't fuss while the enemy's still. Leave it. This is that brat's mission anyway, we can afford to retreat. I don't like leaving things half-finished. Don't be a child, let's go." "Wait." Byleth shouted, raising her sword to swing at them again, only to feel something hit her chest when one of them raised a hand to attack, while the other cast the warp to get them out of there. Grimacing, Byleth glanced down at her chest and brushed off some ashes from an unexpected fireball. It didn't seem too bad, no real burns on her skin, though she did feel a little weird from the impact. Probably nothing to worry about. Guess they were too scared to face off against the intimidating king of grappling. Balthus boasted, seemingly no worse for wear. "Seems like," Byleth responded while she tried to relax, doing her best not to think about the two Agarthans who escaped. Though before she could start to make her way back to the castle, a wave of nausea hit Byleth, making her stumble as she steadied herself. And as quickly as it arrived, so did it leave. "Ugh, what was that?" "That was odd," Suthies noted as she appeared beside Byleth with a worried frown. "It felt as if I lost my connection to you for a moment." "That spell the Agarthan cast felt strange, that's probably it," Byleth said, trying to shake her head to clear it. Byleth." Balthus spoke up, getting her attention, before he shook his head. Nothing, must have been a trick of the light." "Oh, okay," Byleth replied, before making her way back to the castle. As she did, Constance and Balthus shared a glance, both agreeing that they saw the same sight. Namely, that Byleth's hair had turned blue for a brief moment there. Gritting her teeth, Cronia started to think this day was definitely going to be up there in terms of her worst days. Sure, she was causing havoc in the Empire, but also she had yet to kill anyone besides some no-name guards. Not to mention that the Emperor's personal guard turned out to actually be pretty strong as they decimated the Dolofonos that she brought along with her, the trained assassins falling to swift sword strikes and blasts of magic. Though, it wasn't that big of a surprise since the abomination was here as well. And had just shattered Adolphonos' helmet with her first and smashed him straight into a wall. The blood bursting from his mouth, nose, and eyes was probably a bad sign. The most aggravating part, however, was the purple-haired traitor Cronia had to fight. "What do you think you're doing, siding with that beast? What are you talking about?" Shay asked, bewildered by her question as she deflected her daggers. First you ruined my plans at my fort, and now you're defending that stupid beast. Do you know how much you've angered Thales? Why should I care?" Shay asked again, not really sure why this girl was so pissed at her specifically. "A bit of advice, partner. Taking this one alive might prove useful if she's actually in charge. She may be able to tell us more about what's going on," Arvel advised as the battle around them seemed to be coming to an end, considering one of the remaining assassins had just been skewered by Geralt. In that case, throwing her swords with her full strength, Shay waited for Cronia to dodge the attack, before flashing behind her, and wrapped her arms around the assassin. And the next thing Cronia knew, she was getting suplexed, her head hitting the floor hard enough to knock her out. "Guess those brawling lessons were actually pretty good," Shay muttered as she got up, looking over the unconscious Agarthan. "Hey Edelgard, I took this one alive." Edelgard paused, pulling her axe free of a crushed assassin, and nodded. Good work, Shay. You're actually leaving one of them alive? Rhea asked, sounding disgusted. We already know where their base is. She can still provide useful information. Trust me, I hold no love for these monsters, but there can be some benefit from this, Edelgard argued, even as she frowned. The fact that Shay had jumped in to save her was a point in her favor, but there was a question of why she spared. Your Majesty! Monica shouted as she ran into the throne room, with Dorothea following behind her. Edie, I'm so glad to see you're okay. Humph, about time you two showed up, Hubert said, glowering at the pair. Well, sorry we got a bit delayed, Dorothea huffed, before noticing who else was there. Grinning, she grabbed her friend's hands, earning a surprised blink and then a happy smile from their visitor from Brigid. Petra. I'm so glad to see you too. It does my heart well to see you as well. The Queen replied, a bright smile on her face as she greeted her friend. We definitely need to catch up later, Dorothea decided, before remembering something. Oh, right, we need to head back into the city to help. Finally someone says something I agree with, Rhea muttered, quickly turning to lead the way out of the throne room. Make sure to have our soldiers sweep the city to help where needed, Edelgard instructed Hubert as she followed behind. I don't recall asking you to come, the former archbishop muttered, annoyed. Byleth is still my guest. It would not do to leave her in the city in this state. If you ask me, I say 2 assassination attempts is enough reason for us to leave, Gerald complained. That should be Byleth's decision, Edelgard argued, heedless of the glare she received. Thankfully, before the argument could fully start, they found Byleth in the hallways flanked by Constance and Balthus. Ah, I thought I heard arguing, Byleth remarked, a smile on her face as she spotted 2 of her favorite people to have complicated feelings about. She affected a stern look, frowning at Edelgard and Rhea despite her urge to keep smiling. You two really need to stop fighting. Heh. I will keep your words under advisement, Lady Archbishop, Rhea replied, before moving over and giving her a kiss on the forehead. I'm glad to see you are okay. Edelgard. Only to stiffen as a panicked voice rang out and Ferdinand practically skidded around a corner. Intruders in the dungeon, I had to fight them off, oh. Ah, I knew it. You two are mother and daughter. Lawrence is going to be so jealous I was the one to confirm it. Byleth sighed, a small frown forming on her face. One that deepened when she heard Edelgard let out a snort. She turned towards the Emperor, who seemed to be covering a laugh before she pretended to cough. I'm not even going to argue this time. Why would you argue? Are things not going well between you and your mother? Ferdinand, please shut up. Chapter 37, Very Important Discussions. While the damages were high, it seems the attackers were mainly there to cause a distraction for the assassins to target the Emperor, Archbishop, and Queen. As such, the casualties were rather low, Hubert stated as he read a report on the status of the city. I have a separate document tallying the estimated cost of damages done and another detailing the injury and fatality amount. Thank you, Hubert. I will make sure to peruse those documents after this meeting, Edelgard responded from her place at the head of the meeting table, before she inclined her head towards Petra and Byleth, who were seated on opposite ends along the sides. It was her war council room, so a certain unevenness could be allowed. She also had Monica standing nearby writing down everything said. I apologize for this incident. I accept responsibility for lapses that put you both in danger and I hope it will not negatively impact our diplomatic relationships going forward. Petra sat straight and calm, taking some of the offered tea as her attendants from Brigid glowered behind her. One leaned over her shoulder, speaking in a hushed tone in the language of their homeland, before she nodded and set the cup down. Emperor Edelgard, my attendant is having some concerns about the safety I can be expecting here. I am finding these concerns reasonable in the light of the sudden attack. I know you are capable, but I am needing reassurance that there will not be threats to my people while we are in your care. I can assure you that your people will be safe while they are in the Empire. The attack may have been poor timing for us, but we were able to deflect them, and they likely won't attempt anything so soon again. And they'll likely be targeting me rather than any of your people, or the Emperor. Byleth added in. And why would that be? Petra asked. Because the people who attacked us view me as their worst enemy. Specifically to them, I am the one known as the Fell Star, the cause of all their suffering. Edelgard frowned at that, distinctly remembering Thales saying how she would be a weapon against the Fell Star should she ever return. You are a star? Petra asked, a bit confused. Not exactly, Queen Petra. It's a name they gave to their mortal enemy, and they call me as such because I hold the same crest as her, Byleth explained, not wanting to go into all the detail right now. One of the Bridget attendants muttered under her breath, prompting a look from Hubert. Is there something wrong with your attendant, Queen Petra? She is thinking matters of crests are very troublesome, Petra elaborated, more politely than her attendant had said. On that, we can agree, Edelgard replied, heedless of the fact that the Archbishop was there. Not that Byleth minded. Quite. It can be a hassle being persecuted for something that wasn't by choice, Byleth said as she nodded. Though it can be used as an advantage since, as I said, they'll be targeting me. Are you saying you want to use yourself as bait? Edelgard asked with a frown. In a sense. Because of what occurred, you'll need to have a proper response, correct? Byleth asked, while I am not certain about the Empire's strength, the strength of the Slitherers cannot be underestimated. I can handle myself. Petra paused. The Slitherers. Ah, those who slither in the dark. The people that attacked us. But you were earlier saying they were Agarthans, correct? Well, yeah, but it's the same name for, I guess technically the Agarthans are the people and those who slither are the organization. She frowned. Can there even be Agarthans that aren't part of the Slitherers? Edelgard cleared her throat. As fascinating as these questions might be, we had better focus. As the Archbishop has stated, I have no choice but to respond to their attack. Doing nothing would only make the people of Adrestia lose faith in me, while also prompting some nobles to think of me as weak. That is true, unfortunately. While I cannot speak about the characters of the ministers, it is still a fact they were involved in the insurrection. And while they don't have as much power, I imagine Aegir and the impostor regent likely had countless minor nobles who supported them. Byleth let out a sigh. I guess I can consider myself lucky Varley decided to mouth off around me. He's on thin ice thanks to that. Hubert made a faintly amused noise there. You are not incorrect, Eisner, though I wouldn't underestimate the man's ability to scuttle away from consequence like the cockroach he is. Oh. Should I officially censure him then? That's something I can do, right? That might be something worth discussing at a later time. For now, he glanced at Edelgard for permission and received it with a nod. Due to the threat they represent to the people of Adrestia and its emperor, those of House Vestra believe the only proper response to those who slither in the dark is a direct attack to rid our country of this threat as soon as possible. To that end, we have investigated claims of where they are hiding within Adrestia and discovered a potential location we believe to be their primary base of operations. Oh, so you found Shamhala, good. Hubert tried not to sigh at Byleth's happy smile. Lady Eisner, has anyone ever told you to show more discretion in official meetings? Ah, Byleth glanced behind herself to her own attendants, noting how Yuri seemed to be stifling a laugh and Constance was hiding her own expression behind her fan. So you found it then, right? He did sigh that time. Yes, we found it. Petra raised a hand, drawing attention back to her. Lady Archbishop, I am wondering how you are knowing of this, Shamhala. Visions from the goddess, Byleth promptly answered. Oh, yes, I am knowing of this already. Thank you for your explaining. Edelgard noticed how Petra actually seemed more relaxed after that explanation, as did her attendants. She briefly wished it was that easy for her to get away with lying, before remembering that it technically wasn't even a lie, just not the complete truth, and tried to focus back in on the conversation. As Hubert has stated, we know where our enemy's base of operations is located. The question now is, what kind of support can we expect in attacking it? You have the full support of the Knights of Syros. Byleth immediately offered, prompting Constance to close her fan and step forward. What Her Eminence means to say, Your Majesty, is that the Church fully supports your endeavors in ridding Adrestia of this horrible threat plaguing it. However, she continued before Byleth could ask why. She repeated what she said. Logistically, it may be difficult to actually bring the full force of the Knights of Syros down on the enemy, depending on the timing of the retaliatory attack. Sending full companies of knights through the Okama Mountains is not exactly feasible, and we would need permission from the Alliance to travel through their borders. We could, with your permission, travel through Barnabas territory, though I doubt the travel would be timely enough for our current needs. Depending, of course, on how quickly you wish to retaliate against our mutual enemy. Byleth blinked, actually kind of impressed by how calm and eloquent Constance sounded. There wasn't even any oh-ho-ho added in. You've seen the inside of Shamhala in your visions, correct? Edelgard asked as she glanced at Byleth. What are the chances of victory with the forces we have right now? Could I have some parchment paper and something to write with? Byleth asked, to which Hubert nodded, before getting her the items she asked for. Rolling the paper out, Byleth began to draw a rudimentary map on it. Which is to say, she was able to get the general shape down, and had several stick figures on the map. Edelgard briefly wondered what the figures on the map were, before seeing Byleth give one in the center a frown and a scraggly beard. This is what I remember. This central room is where the leader of those who slither will be residing in, and over here, she pointed at two figures at opposite corners, are some important locations we need to take control of. They have large, metal golems as well as a magical device that can strike anyone within the city, and these are the rooms where they're controlling them. That being said, even with those removed, Thales has the ability to cause the ground to shake, which can be very dangerous to those caught off guard. The silver lining, however, is that he won't use such a spell until he's pushed into a corner, since it might cause the ground above Shambhala to fall. I cannot say for certain things will go exactly as I saw, but it's still a good basis to plan for these circumstances. There is one major problem, and that is a trump card that Thales holds, the Javelins of Light. A javelin does not sound that impressive, Petra commented. These aren't regular javelins, Queen Petra. These are large metal weapons that rain down from the sky, with enough power to raise nearly anything to the ground. And just how powerful are they? Hubert asked. They've used them once before. You would know the aftermath as Aliel. And they can just use those whenever? Edelgard asked, horrified. No, even just using it once could lead to their base being discovered by a skilled enough mage, Byleth responded as she shook her head. The Agarthans also wish to reclaim Fodlan, so destroying it would be counterintuitive. That being said, Thales is the type to lash out if backed into a corner. If we aren't careful, he'll rain the javelins on Shambhala to take us out with him. He would kill his own people to defeat us. Petra asked, frowning. Despite his grandstanding, Thales is a man that cares more for his revenge than anything else. If he truly cared for them, he could have used his position as the regent to slowly bring his people to the surface and take it over without ever needing to fight a single battle. Instead, he chooses to take revenge against someone who has long since died, Byleth explained, remembering the insane Agarthan leader. However, that is something we can exploit. If he were to learn I am part of the attack, he could be lured out from this central room. That being said, the chances of us winning, if we were to be able to wait for reinforcements from the church, we'd likely be guaranteed a victory. That being said, we'd probably lose the element of surprise if they see such a large force moving. As it stands, we have an even chance of winning or losing. Even more if you and your men aid us, Queen Petra. Petra thought to herself as one of her guards whispered to her. As it stands, we are not obligated to aid in the attack. Edelgard raised a hand to stop Hubert from saying anything. Of course, this is an enemy of the Empire, not Brigid. However, we have yet to be officially freed from our status as vassals. So I ask you, Emperor Edelgard, do you wish to command us to help you, or ask for aid from allies? Petra asked, staring straight at Edelgard. As the Emperor of Adrestia, I, Edelgard von Hresvelg, humbly ask for the aid of the land of Brigid, Edelgard replied without hesitation. It seemed to have an immediate effect based on the guard's reactions, one visibly brightening while the other's eyebrow raised. She didn't know what exactly they said to one another, but Byleth was able to pick up that they seemed to think Edelgard wasn't that bad. Very well, in that case, I graciously offer the aid of my men and I in your assault, Petra responded with a smile. Thank you. Now then, we shall begin preparations for the attack, though we shall have to wait till Count Berglis arrives. For now, however, we should call this meeting to an end, Edelgard said, standing up and missing the frown on Petra's face. Very well, Petra agreed, getting up as well. Staying quiet, Byleth waited for Petra to leave before approaching her in the hall. Ah, Queen Petra. Yes, did you need something, Lady Archbishop? Please, just call me Byleth, she responded with a smile. I just want to ask, you are not fond of Count Berglis, correct? What does that have to do with this? Nothing really, I just wanted to see how you were doing. That, and I wanted to make an offer to you. Namely that, if you would like, I could beat up Count Berglis for you. Petra blinked, trying to process what exactly Byleth proposed while her guards stared, wide-eyed, at the Archbishop. Excuse me. Well, I can't censure Berglis since he hasn't done anything to the church, but I can challenge him to a duel and beat him up if you want. This time there was a response, namely that of one of Petra's guards laughing. May I ask why you are offering this? Petra asked as she studied Byleth. The idea did sound pleasant, but she had to be careful that this wasn't a trap. Well, we're friends, aren't we? Byleth asked, with a sincerity unbefitting of her position. Petra couldn't help but smile in response. I will be keeping your offer in mind. Okay, I'll see you later, Queen Petra, Byleth said before curtsying to her. Well, things might be messy, but she was glad everyone was here. Now hopefully things would go well when they attacked the Agarthans. Excuse me, Lady Eisner. Blinking, Byleth turned to see Monica standing nearby. Oh, hello Monica. Is something wrong? Not necessarily, but I do have a question I wish to ask you. Namely, about Emperor Edelgard. Staying quiet, Byleth gestured for her to continue. I admit, I am still skeptical when it comes to the idea that you are able to see visions of a different time. However, I must admit that if it weren't for you, Lady Dorothea and I might not have survived the attack on the city. So thank you. As such, I am willing to believe your claims. Therefore, I would like to ask about Her Majesty's time in the monastery when you supposedly taught her. Please, don't leave out any details. May I ask why you want to hear about her time at the monastery? I have taken the task of writing down the biography of Lady Edelgard. However, as it stands, despite my perfect memory, I cannot be at her side at all times. As such, it is only right that I question those close to her, including about her activities in a different time. Oh, well, first off, I want to say that's a fantastic idea, Monica, Byleth started, getting the redhead to smile. As for my time with her, well, I'd rather not say any personal secrets since Edelgard should tell you those if she wants to. Humph. As if you would know any intimate secrets of Lady Edelgard that she hasn't told me. Deciding to ignore that, Byleth tilted her head. She likes to look at the night sky when she has trouble sleeping. She likes how the breeze feels. Wait, she does? How do you know that? Monica asked with a frown at Byleth, immediately proving her wrong. I happened to meet her outside one night. We talked about stuff I probably shouldn't say since those are Edelgard's secrets. Humph. Very well, I won't pry on what you talked about, Monica decided with a frown. Is there any food at the monastery she liked? I wasn't able to join her while she was at the academy, but it would be good to know if she preferred any Fayergon or Leicester dishes. Well, she liked the sweet bun trio, but she preferred sweets in general. She wasn't that big on meaty dishes as well, Byleth responded as she remembered the two of them dining together often. I see, and can you tell me how she looked when eating her favorite dishes? Oh, she tended to savor the first bite of any dessert, especially if she was in a celebratory mood. She even got these cute little wrinkles by the corner of her eyes whenever she ate a sorbet or sigurt in cream. Ah, good, I was worried you wouldn't mention any details like that, Monica said as she nodded along. Why is that? Byleth asked, making Monica groan as if the answer was obvious. Because I need to know every detail for Her Majesty's biography. You have no idea how annoying it is to ask someone what Her Majesty did or said only for them to go, oh, I think she liked it. Because they aren't paying attention. Oh, well, I guess most people tend not to pay attention to that sort of thing. I might not have a perfect memory like you, but I do tend to notice stuff like that. Such as how Edelgard likes to line up her plus highs on her bed. Monica stared at Byleth in disbelief. Her Majesty wouldn't do something so childish. Byleth stared back. It's not childish, it's cute. Humph, wait, why were you inside Her Majesty's room? Because I needed to talk to her about something? Why actually, you know what, let's just find Edelgard, she can clear this up, Byleth decided, before turning around to walk away with Monica following close behind. Unfortunately for Edelgard, they were able to find her easily enough since she was in the middle of talking with Hubert. Make sure to focus repair efforts in the housing districts. Hey Edelgard, you line up your plus highs right? Byleth asked, cutting in on the conversation. Excuse me? You better have a good reason for asking such an inane question to Her Majesty, Hubert said, audibly annoyed. Sure, Byleth replied, before ignoring Hubert, you know, putting all your plus highs together in a line on your bed. Don't you do that? I don't have plus highs, Edelgard argued as her face turned a bit pink. Oh, do you want me to get you one then? I wanted to get you a gift, but Yuri said it would be too childish and might be taken as an insult, which is kinda weird because hey, plus highs are nice to cuddle with, and you always seemed happy when I got you one. I don't what are I dash. Feeling her face begin to burn, Edelgard turned away. Hubert, let's go. Goodbye, Monica, Byleth. Blinking, Byleth watched as she walked away. Huh, did she seem embarrassed? A blushing Lady Edelgard, Monica muttered, getting Byleth to stare at her. I was wrong. You were an ally. Oh, thank you. No, I should be thanking you. I got to see a new side of Lady Edelgard that I hadn't before. This will assuredly be a big hit. Oh, well, glad I could help. Of course it was a big help. The things Her Majesty is planning, well, even if war isn't looming, many people will side against her, that much is clear. They'll slander her at any chance they get, so I want to make sure there's a record of who Lady Edelgard truly was for generations to come. So every detail is necessary. Yeah, I can see that. In the time I saw, many people only saw her as a tyrant, not a girl who wanted to better the land. Monica sighed. If only everyone could see how amazing she really is. Yeah. Byleth rubbed the back of her head, feeling a bit anxious. I'm not usually one to pick up on stuff like this, but you love her, don't you? With all my heart, she confirmed, earning a smile from Byleth. Good. She needs people like that. She deserves to feel loved. She does, Monica said, before glancing at Byleth. And just because you might be my ally, doesn't mean I'll allow you to steal her away. Heh, I don't think you'll have to worry about that, Byleth replied, before reaching over and patting her on the head. Good luck on winning her over. Blushing as she briefly remembered how firm Byleth's arms were, Monica jetted back. I'm not falling for your tricks. I won't let you seduce me. What? I don't, I mean you're cute but what? I knew it. You are trying to steal me away from her. Well, it won't work. Monica shouted, focusing on Byleth calling her cute. She promptly turned and ran away from Byleth while shouting over her shoulder. My heart belongs to Lady Edelgard. Gee, good luck. Byleth really didn't know what to say to all that. Sighing loudly as he overlooked the relief efforts, Ferdinand couldn't help but feel unsatisfied despite his assigned task being important work. Trying to knock over that broken building with your breath. She teased, glancing over at her friend in between aiding her soldiers in moving supplies. No, I am simply displeased. I understand that repairs and relief must be done immediately, it is an important task. Even Linhard was helping for once, even if it was more so lazily supervising than clearing rubble. That being said, even if I'm only the acting Prime Minister, I should be in the war room, helping prepare for our next move, should I not? Should you? Yes. The Prime Minister is meant to be the Emperor's right hand. I thought that was Hubert. Ferdinand grimaced at the reminder. The Marquis Vestra is more meant to be the Emperor's left hand, no, the Emperor's shadow. He is the one running the household and managing internal affairs, and yes, he can take an advisory role, but the Prime Minister is meant to be the one overseeing the ministries and directly advising the Emperor, not him. Huh. I guess that makes sense. Though doesn't that mean I should be there too? I'm a general, and if it's a military thing that's going on. No, it's different. A general would be awaiting orders from the Emperor. Or from the Prime Minister, he added a little mulishly. Is this another noble thing? Shay asked with a frown. I mean, I know I'm new to this, but I'm pretty sure that a general is supposed to give advice and such during military meetings. So is there a difference between us since you're a noble and I'm a commoner? Well, yes, there is a difference in our positions. I am a noble, I was born for the position of Prime Minister. I should be in that room with Edelgard, making the decisions. I shouldn't just be following her orders. Okay, sure, I get that, it's noble stuff. But, no offense, but why would Edelgard want you in there? All you do is argue with her. Ferdinand frowned. I don't argue with her, I advise her on the proper path forward. You kinda do argue with her. I know I'm not around you all the time, but every time I am, whatever you say to her isn't even constructive criticism. I get that you're not happy about your dad, but it just kinda makes Edelgard not want you around in important meetings like that. Just because she cannot handle a dissenting opinion. Hey, Ferdinand, actually listen to me, Shay insisted, getting Ferdinand to pause. Very well. You were saying. Right, so, say you're Edelgard, and you're dealing with a sudden attack on the city. And not just an attack, but one that happened while you're hosting two important people in the city. Do you really want to have the guy that's going to undermine you in the meeting? Ferdinand blinked. I'm not. Does she really think of me as just someone that undermines her? She might not, but it's kinda clear you're not part of her inner circle. A dissenting opinion might be useful, but not if it's every single time. Heck, if anything, I think she still likes you. I mean, she's keeping you around despite what your dad did, right? I understand that my father may have committed crimes. Even the Archbishop is sure of his guilt, but she still could have waited for proper evidence to come forward rather than just arresting him outright. He's still entitled to a fair trial. A fair trial, huh? Yeah, that's definitely a noble thing, Shay muttered. Big fancy trial where people are actually willing to listen to you, instead of just getting kicked out cause someone decided to blame you for something. Hold on, commoners don't have trials. If you're in a village, sure, you might get to talk to the head or the elder, and cities might have more official stuff, but if you're traveling in a mercenary band and someone who's been there longer decides to say you're stealing, you'll be lucky if they don't decide to hang you before you get a word out, Shay said with a shrug. We don't have the luxury of making it some big fancy thing, and that's not even going into how some nations might handle things. Heck, I have no idea how the kingdom might run things, but I have a feeling if a chivalric knight decides to blame you for something, people will take their word for it. That is a remarkably cynical way of looking at the world. Ferd, it's not remarkable. Lots of people live like this. You're the outlier here, buddy, Shay responded. Nobles get a bunch of luxuries that commoners don't. Heck, back in my hometown my mom and I were some of the only people who could read and write aside from the village head. That is not a luxury. Buddy, it kinda is. Sure, nobles might excel more than commoners because of all their training, but it's very much a thing that between learning how to actually write, or working to help feed your family, most commoners will choose the latter. With another shrug, Shay looked around. Hey, Friss. Waving over a soldier carrying a box, Shay waited for the man to walk over. Something up, boss. Just need you to confirm something, Shay turned to Ferdinand before gesturing to Friss. This is one of the guys working for me, probably one of my best men. Now Friss, are you illiterate? Well, yeah, my entire family is. Why you asking? Proving a point, don't worry about it. So you can't read, right? That cause you any trouble? He shrugged. Not really. Most higher UPS give verbal orders, so I don't need to read to do my job. So what happens if you get orders you gotta read? I bring 'em to you, since you can read and you're my boss. What if I'm not around? I ask Jaeger or Krieger, since they know how to. Anybody else in the company know? Nope, he stated completely matter-of-factly as Ferdinand blinked, caught off guard. I think Henry knows a few words. Not like you need to know any to stab a spear though. Yeah, I getcha. Alright, that's all. Yeah, no problem. He glanced over at Ferdinand, before leaning closer and speaking lower. Trying to prove to your boss that we commoners don't need their fancy words to do our jobs right. Basically, though the Emperor's my boss. Ferd's actually on the same level as me, pretty much. Heh, seriously? Well hey, he can't be so important if he's down here with the rest of us, huh. He chuckled as he headed off, not noticing Ferdinand's frown. See Ferd. Shay said, turning back to him, that's just how things are. I like being able to read and all, but most people aren't going to be interested in it cause they never had to learn. Least that's what I can tell from my experience. You'd probably have to ask Dorothea how things are for commoners in the Empire. I was aware of some issues. I had thought it would be good to offer education to commoners going forward, but... Wait, you already had that idea? Well, why didn't you ever bring that up with Edelgard? That's actually a good idea that she'd probably like. He furrowed his brow again. I am not trying to curry favor with Edelgard. Ferdinand, that's stupid. You know that's stupid, right? She's the emperor, she's in charge, that's how the whole monarchy works. Everybody tries to get favor from the people above them, and you're not exempt from that. I mean hey, even Edelgard needs to get people like those counts on her side, right? Ferdinand opened, then closed his mouth, still frowning. I suppose I just thought that you'd be one of the people she has to curry favor from. And no, I didn't think of it like that. My father always said it would be my job to guide her. I always looked back at the long history of Aegir's and Hresvelg's with that idea in mind. I had all these thoughts of how I would use our time in the academy to prove my superiority to her, to make her acknowledge that I was the one who could lead us all towards a better empire, and then everything was upended in a mere month, and now you're scrambling in the rubble with the commoners. I don't mind this work, Shay. It is the duty of a noble to care for his people, and to aid in relief is no less honorable than fighting on the battlefield. What bothers me is realizing Edelgard doesn't need me. If it were something we decided on together, but, no. She just doesn't want me around. If she didn't want you around, then she wouldn't have you as the acting prime minister, and she definitely wouldn't have asked you to come to Inver during the archbishop's trip. Shay patted him on the shoulder. The thing is Ferd, I really do think you'd make the empire great, the best it could have been in the state it was. The way I see it though, that's not what Edelgard wants. She wants to change the empire completely, so you two are kinda on opposite sides despite being allies, you know? Though it's also that stuff that could help. I mean, there's probably plenty of people who backed your father who don't like Edelgard in charge, right? So try and talk with them, see if any of them are willing to work with her or back your idea of offering education to commoners. Instead of just being the one that says no, try to offer her something like that. I must admit, I can see the merit in what you're saying. Good. Oh, and I just want to say this, just in case, but if you do recruit those nobles on your side, try not to rebel. I mean, I'm not going to sell you out or anything, but I'm loyal to my contracts. Ferdinand frowned. Shay, I'm not going to launch a rebellion. Good, it's a bad idea, Shay said, before winking. Wink. Shay, why did you say wink? Oh, 'cause I'm telling you it's a bad idea to rebel. She winked again. Wink. Are you telling me to rebel? What? Of course I'm not, it's a bad idea. Why would you think that? Because you're winking and audibly saying wink. It's like you're telling me to do something you're saying not to do. No, I'm not, I'm winking for emphasis. Shay, you don't wink to emphasize something, it means you're being coy. No? Wait, you think I'm flirting with you? What? No. Why would you think that? That's what being coy means. No, it isn't. When you're being coy, look, it has to do with being deceptive, not being flirtatious. I'm not lying to you though. That's not, Shay, please." As the two of them bickered back and forth, Arvel could only stare in exasperation, wondering just how dumb their partner really was. Chapter 38, Star-Crossed. Letting out a small sigh as she finished her work for the day, Marianne von Edmund began to realize just how difficult it was to run one of the great houses. It did give her a new appreciation for her adoptive father, especially since, while he was a bit cutthroat, he wasn't involved in anything illegal as far as she could see. Still, even the fraction of work he was giving her took time to look over, and then she had to redo it when he noticed some mistakes. It was to be expected she'd have problems. Bringing her hands up, she gave herself a light smack on her cheeks, trying to dispel her negative thoughts before they could continue. She didn't have to worry about becoming a monster, but habits were hard to change. Getting up, she made sure to hand her work over to a servant to deliver to her father before retiring for the night. On her desk was a stack of letters she had yet to open, all from various members of the Golden Deer who had written back to her. It was nice to know everyone wanted to keep in contact with her. At least she assumed so. A part of her did wonder why Hilda had written her name on the envelope since the Goneril seal was enough. For now though, she opened one letter in specific. "Dear Marianne. Thank you for writing to me, I am pleased to hear you are doing well. It is interesting to hear that Claude has an apparent interest in me. I suppose now would be the time to act coy if I were to meet him? Regardless, thank you for not informing him of what we discussed. My stay at the Empire has not gone as I had imagined, but it is pleasant nonetheless. Everyone in the Black Eagles is doing well though, this may be odd to hear, but it doesn't feel complete. Even if they never joined this time, I will always consider those who were in my class as an Eagle. I hope that one day everyone can meet up again and be friends. If I can ask a favor of you, can you please make sure Lysithea is okay? I would rather not discuss her secrets, but she needs help as well. Regardless, I hope everything goes well for you. If you ever need help of any kind, then you need only ask. Sincerely, Byleth. P.S. I did want to leave one last bit of advice for you, namely that I hope you can be more honest with yourself. You are a good person, Marianne, and you deserve nice things." At that, Marianne could only imagine Byleth smiling at her, making her blush for a moment. Though, that did make her think of something. It would be some time until Byleth could visit the Alliance. Perhaps Marianne could instead visit the church, and bring some guests along with her? Marianne smiled to herself, imagining her savior's beautiful smile again as she pressed the letter to her chest, right over her heart. She really did want to see her again. Just the thought made her heart soar. Byleth hummed to herself as she walked out into the gardens, gently carrying a tea set with both her hands. Despite being alone, the set on the tray had 2 teacups. "Must you go out every night?" Suthies asked, following behind her friend. "This is the 4th day in a row you've gone. I doubt she'll come to sit with you this time. I just want to make sure." She set the tray down on a tea table and sat with a small smile, enjoying the night air. "If nothing else, it's nice being out here." Well, I can agree with that much," Suthies muttered as she stared at the sky. "Though much time has passed, the sky remains the same." "Huh. Nothing. I am just being nostalgic," Suthies responded. "Byleth, are you happy?" "Of course I am," Byleth said, smiling up at her. "Good. As long as you are happy, I am as well." "I hope you haven't been waiting long," Edelgard said, her voice cutting in as she sat across from Byleth. Oh, of course not," Byleth replied, smiling as she began to prepare the tea. "I just got here." "I am glad to hear that," Edelgard said, leaning back in her chair. "I suppose it is also lucky that you happened to be out here tonight." "Well, not that lucky. I've been coming out every night," Byleth explained with a small smile. "Have you been waiting for me every day?" Not exactly. I mean, I guess I have, but I've also just enjoyed being out in the gardens." "It's nice." Edelgard raised an eyebrow. "I would think you would prefer spending your evenings with Dorothea." Byleth's face reddened as she set the teapot back down. "I haven't been doing that with her every night." "That is a surprise, given how close you are during the training sessions." "I just want to make sure she's okay. Dorothea might be good with magic, but not everyone can be as strong as you. I'm pretty sure you could probably take on the rest of the Black Eagles on your own. Byleth paused and tilted her head in thought. She might be difficult, given her speed, but in a full suit of armor you'd be well defended against her. I suppose it'll come down to whether you could land one good hit in or not. Of course, she also tends to make her attacks fairly obvious, so being able to read her would help. How so? Oh, you know, whenever she flashes away she always tries to go for my blind spot. I get the feeling she isn't used to fighting skilled opponents if she thinks I won't be able to react to that. From my understanding, she was still in the process of making a name for herself. Chances are, you were probably the first real opponent she faced off against, Edelgard remarked, taking the cup of tea once it had cooled down enough for her tastes. It certainly seems like it. Whatever power she has, she heals faster than anyone with a crest does, but she relies a bit too much on it. It's a bad habit to rely on one thing like that. Byleth sipped her tea, before shrugging. Though I might just be saying that since I tend to spread out a bit more. Yes, it's quite surprising how good of an instructor you are. It's actually rather annoying. I've had several instructors over the years, but I doubt any were as skilled as you. Well, I did spend a year teaching everyone. I know what does and doesn't work. Even with Monica and Shay around, the class isn't as big as it was last time, so I can divide my attention. If you don't mind me asking, who exactly did you recruit for the Black Eagles? Oh, well, there was Ash, Lysithea, Marianne, Lawrence, and Leonie, Byleth said, counting them out. Flane also joined us after we saved her from the Death Knight. And, well, after the war started, I was still expected to teach, which meant I also had to teach some of the knights, as well as Cyril. They expected you to teach after the war began. It helped train everybody, kept their skills up. I liked it, actually. It was a brighter point for me, early on, but then it all just faded away, along with everything else I liked. It just became a burden, instead of something I enjoyed. She sighed. I think at some point, I just wanted the war to be over so badly that I ignored everything that didn't have to do with directly ending it. I think I would have killed anyone in front of me as long as it stopped that dull ache in me. Heh, I didn't realize how much it all hurt until it was finally over. You do understand why I wanted war, right? Edelgard asked, though she wasn't sure why exactly she was asking. To change Fodlan for the better, I know. I don't know what would have happened if I did join your side. If you asked me before, I would have said I'd gladly join you and rip the church down from its foundations for your sake. A part of me still would. The thing is, I'm not emotionless. I'm not a demon. The reason I do things is because of who I love. I love my father, so I would have killed anyone for him without a second thought. I love you, so I would gladly strive for the same goals as you. But then those two loves conflicted and I broke. And now, I love Rhea. I love the wolves. They're all different kinds of love, but I'm attached, and it means I'm conflicted. If I had just one person to follow, it would be simple. I would follow them gladly. And I'd kill anyone who tried to hurt them. But that mindset doesn't work if the person I love is being attacked by someone else I love. So, there's the essence of my problem. I see. I have to admit, I'm surprised that you chose to become the Archbishop. The way you describe it, you sound like you would prefer following someone else in the position. Who else could I trust with it? She shook her head. Following someone else didn't work out for me. If I lead, I can protect my people better. It's as simple as that. And if I were to still declare war after all this? Edelgard asked, even if she dreaded the answer. A sharp crack was heard as Byleth's grip on her teacup tightened, the cup falling onto the table. Please don't joke about that. Shouldn't you consider the possibility though? If all your plans fail, what will you do next? I'm not going to kill you. I don't like thinking about this, but, she took a slow breath. Do you want me as an enemy that badly? No. Even if you weren't as strong as you are, I find myself wishing we don't cross blades. Yet wishes will not save Fodlan. You should already know how determined I am. I know. Of course I know. You'd sooner die than back down. Her lips twitched in a moment of dark humor. If I actually wanted to hurt you, I'd probably put my sword through my neck after beating you, so Fodlan's guaranteed to have no one to lead it. Impressively spiteful. You could do worse though. Cripple me, put me in a dungeon, then continue to lead Fodlan into stagnancy. How about I just set the palace on fire and we can both burn in it? Ah, a romantic end then. The scholars of the future would most certainly adore the tale of star-crossed love. Does that mean fated to be, or? No, the opposite. The stars hate the idea. Oh, so they're crossing it out then. Or, crossing swords over it? Do you think stars would fight over romances they don't like? Edelgard shrugged. They're presumably doing something up there. Why not that? Well, if they're that bored, then they might as well come down here and fight me. It's my life, I don't care what the stars want. Byleth raised the broken handle towards the sky. If it's for someone I love, then I'll fight every star in the sky. Edelgard couldn't help but smile at such a silly statement. My, what a bold declaration. And shall you lay siege to even the blue sea star with your mighty handle? If I need to, sure. I've already said I'd do anything for someone I love. Even if they don't show you the same love. I don't need it. As long as they can smile, I'll be happy. Byleth looked back down at Edelgard with a small smile. At least, that's what someone more noble than me would say. Speaking as someone very familiar with nobility, I prefer whatever opposite you are proposing. What would the opposite be, actually? Villainy. Perhaps. Then shall we be villains together, Lady Archbishop, and walk hand in hand down the flowery path of evil? Byleth smirked and stood, offering Edelgard her hand. If you would have me, O villainous Emperor. Smirking in response, Edelgard took the hand and the two walked together through the gardens, their tea left to cool in the night. Perhaps they'll write operas of us, the Emperor suggested, the villainous leaders of Fodlan that burned it all to the ground. But who would be the corrupter? The Archbishop wondered, the Emperor tainting the Archbishop from the path of divinity, or the Archbishop tossing her blessing away to drag the Emperor down with her. Or perhaps we'll both be villains from the start, dragging in others without care for their desires. Why, I imagine those yet to come will find our story quite amusing. Perhaps they'll make it a tale of tragic romance, or we'll simply be two wenches not worthy of love. I suppose we'll never know, much like they'll never know what happened this night, Edelgard said as they entered the Emperor's room. That is true. A secret between you and I sounds quite enticing, Byleth agreed as the door closed behind them. As the soft click of the door sounded out, the two stared at one another, illuminated only by the moon peering in through the windows. Neither of them moved to let go of the other. Not until Byleth let out a slow breath, her face warm. Even then, she didn't fully move away from Edelgard, just let go, slightly. Should we? I'm with Dorothea. I don't think I should do this without her knowing. I can't imagine Dorothea would be too against the idea. Edelgard sighed, some of the building tension leaving her body. Especially since I already talked to her about this. Why, you did? Byleth managed to squeak out. Yes, she made it quite clear that she is not against an open relationship if I were to join. I believe you're far too honest to lie about something like this, but I still want to talk with her first. I'm glad she gave you permission, but it feels wrong not getting permission myself. I'll admit, I am a little disappointed, but I do agree that she should be informed prior to any walking we do. Was that always a euphemism for sex, or are you just now using it as one? I meant it in the sense of an emotional affair, not a physical, ahem. Edelgard cleared her throat, her face warming as well. I am interested. I am aware this might be moving too quickly, but I am attracted to you, and if it did progress to something physical tonight, I would have been not against it. It's a strange feeling I'm not very familiar with. I can understand that. Even months later, I still feel new to emotions. Byleth smiled, taking Edelgard's hands again and brushing her thumb against the Emperor's knuckles. I enjoyed this though. Thank you for spending this time with me. Edelgard stared for a moment, just taking in the surprisingly soft features of the Archbishop, before she returned the smile. I enjoyed it as well. If you would like to repeat the event, I would not mind. Though, perhaps let Dorothea know before next time. Just in case. Byleth felt her face heat up again, but she couldn't stop smiling. I'll make sure to. And then, in a moment of impulse, she kissed Edelgard on the cheek. Good night, Your Majesty. Good night, Your Holiness. And in response, Edelgard kissed Byleth directly on the lips. I'll apologize to Dorothea. See you tomorrow. Byleth asked, as the two let their hands fall to their sides. Of course you will. Good night, Lady Byleth. Byleth smiled again, before leaving the room, and immediately pressing her hands to her face and letting out as quiet of a squeal as she could imagine. Then, like a perfectly composed normal person, she brushed her gown down and headed back to her room without skipping, even though she wanted to. Was it weird that she was excited to tell Dorothea about this? Considering Dorothea quite audibly squealed in excitement when she told her everything the next day, no, it wasn't weird at all. Kind of a shame that the next day happened to be Invasion Day though. Chapter 39, Checking In. So you're the new Archbishop, huh? Byleth nodded as she took in the sight of the esteemed Count Leopold von Bergliez, the Empire's Minister of Military Affairs and the man known as Adrestian's strongest living general. Her first impression of him was that he was shorter than she expected. Indeed I am, Count Bergliez. I am Archbishop Byleth Eisner, and it is nice to meet you. You're shorter than I expected. She frowned. And I suppose the tales of your stature are far bigger than your true height. They're about the same height, Yuri muttered off to the side, though Byleth ignored him. Ha! Looks like you've actually got some bite to you. Bergliez said, visibly amused at her response, so you're actually going to be fighting with us? Yes, I had already intended on fighting the Agarthans even before they had attacked in Bear. Heh, already have a better opinion of you than that Ria dash. Before you say anything, Ria is my aunt, so I would recommend being careful with your words, Byleth interrupted, cutting him off with no hesitation. Well, I think that you're the only one besides Waldemar who's actually been brave enough to mouth off at me to my face. Good on you. Bergliez praised with a smirk on his face. Byleth just nodded. Neat. Now then, I trust you know about the plan. Of course, we're going to be attacking the dastards who were dumb enough to attack in Bear. So are we going right now, or are we going to keep yapping? Byleth really didn't know what to expect with Count Bergliez, but he was certainly something. We are waiting for Emperor Edelgard to finish preparations. Humph, so who's coming along then? The members of the knights who were with us, as well as a regiment of Empire soldiers, and select members of the Black Eagles, who the Emperor has dubbed the Black Eagle Strike Force. That is, an excellent name, I am aware. Sure, I won't argue with that, Count Bergliez decided, scratching the back of his head as he muttered under his breath. Arguing with emperors over stupid names is a good way to lose a head. We will also be joined by the Queen of Brigid and members of her retinue. To that end, I have accepted a duel on her behalf against you. You want to say that again? She nodded. I have accepted a duel on behalf of Queen Petra that is meant to be fought against you. Don't worry, my father also has trouble hearing things sometimes. I'm sure you will still be capable of holding your own against me. Ha! You know, there's a line between being confident and being arrogant, Lady Archbishop. Isn't humility supposed to be a virtue that you church folk practice? I'm aware of my capabilities, Count Bergliez. Besides, the duel will be after the battle, so do your best to stay alive until then. She paused. The duel also isn't to the death, to be clear. I think Queen Petra wouldn't mind if you died, but you're still an imperial minister and I'd prefer it if we didn't inconvenience Emperor Edelgard. Bergliez was starting to realize the Archbishop was a bit off. Sure. Now then, your son is actually a part of the strike force, so I would ask that you check up with him, Byleth said, giving him a slight nod before she walked away. You know threatening a count isn't the best thing to do, Yuri noted as he fell in step behind her. I didn't threaten him, I just stated that I would be dueling him later. I don't think most people would care about the difference. That's silly. There's a difference between letting somebody know something is going to happen and threatening them with it. I didn't threaten to duel him, I just told him we were going to have a duel. That's a distinction without a difference, holy lady. Byleth didn't pout because she was currently being the archbishop and that meant no pouting in public, but she was still a little annoyed. Not that she let it show while she traveled to the courtyards where everyone was assembling for the attack on Shamhala. And by everyone, she meant pretty much everyone. From what she could see, all of the Black Eagles were planning to be part of this venture, which was both invigorating and kind of terrifying. On the one hand, she couldn't be happier to be able to fight alongside her students again. On the other, she couldn't be more scared that they might get hurt in the upcoming mission. A part of her wished it could be put off for longer, but that just wasn't realistic. Even so, she at least was able to train with them for a week while they were waiting for Burgleys, and though it wasn't much, she could still tell they improved. Granted, that was mainly because she knew what worked well for them, and how to help them get over specific problems they might be dealing with. Granted, again, Linhard was still the only one who knew how to use healing magic out of the group, but it could be worse. If Juritsah had been good at his job, this wouldn't have happened. I trust you'll be able to keep yourself in check. Byleth overheard Edelgard say, getting her to glance over and see the Emperor speak with a certain knight. If that is your Majesty's orders. Hello Emperor Edelgard, Juritsah, I see you are preparing for the mission today, Byleth greeted, even as her face warmed a bit as she remembered the previous night. Greetings Lady Byleth, Edelgard responded in kind, her face turning pink, while Juritsah let out some kind of grunt. Was there something you required? Yes, namely that Juritsah does a better job. Excuse me. He was supposed to be the professor of the Black Eagles, correct? Why has he not been around to help teach them? I am no longer a professor of the academy. I only instruct the Emperor on occasion, Juritsah said, confused about what the green-haired woman in robes was talking about. Still, you could at least teach them some things. I have no desire to spar against those who are not strong enough. Byleth glared at Juritsah, making the Knight's Guard come up from the intensity of her gaze. You are lucky I don't want to deal with the Death Knight right now. Just know this, I beat you before and I can do it again. What? Now Juritsah was just baffled. Of course you beat the Death Knight, Edelgard sighed. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't hard. Lysithea was able to do it while we were at the academy trying to save Flayn. Granted that was mainly because the Death Knight completely ignored her. She paused, then looked at Juritsah again. You're really weak to the Dark Spikes spell, try to avoid enemy mages. You are not my employer, Juritsah abruptly felt himself get grabbed by the collar of his shirt and forced down to eye level with the robed woman, who looked distinctly annoyed now. Avoid the enemy mages or get used to being skewered and exploded. Now stop being a stubborn asshole and do what you're told. She released him before glancing at Edelgard. He can stay under control, right? No running off to fight people and jeopardizing the mission. He is capable of following orders, yes, the Emperor replied, not expecting such an aggressive response from the usually more weepy Archbishop. That, and... Did you say Lysithea beat the Death Knight? Yes, repeatedly. The first time because he ignored her, but I usually had her wipe him out whenever he showed up later. As I said, Dark Spikes is extremely effective. It's a good anti-cavalry spell in general, but this big idiot is especially susceptible. She rapped her knuckles against his chest for emphasis and Edelgard couldn't help but notice Juritsah looked completely baffled by Byleth. And possibly interested, which was immediately dangerous. Byleth, perhaps you should check on the other members of the strike force. I think your experience will be valuable in ensuring everyone is prepared for the attack. Oh, right, of course. Though are you prepared? I am, though I am also thinking I might need to send a message to Ordelaya territory. Wait, you didn't? But we're going over to HRYM with a large force, they're going to get concerned. I meant I needed to send a letter to Lysithea specifically. Oh, okay. That's a smart idea. I always knew you were my best student, Byleth praised, smiling at Edelgard before walking away. Edelgard, meanwhile, stared after the Archbishop as she left, feeling something pleasant in her chest at the praise. What, not going to give her a gold star? Yuri teased. Oh, should I? Byleth asked, not realizing she was being teased. Should see if I can find anything like that. Before she could continue her thoughts on how to properly praise her students, someone came up to the duo. Hey there Biley, I hope you're feeling well, Dorothea greeted with a bright smile, before giving the Archbishop a peck on the cheek, making her face immediately warm. Hi Dorothea. So you're coming along too, right? Byleth asked, a little concern drifting into her voice. Well, I can't exactly stay behind when even Byrne is coming along, she replied, amused, before giving Byleth a quick hug. Don't worry, I'll stay on the back lines with the other mages, I'm not about to go charging in for any heroics. You need to promise you'll stay safe too though. Oh okay. I promise. Yuri chuckled, making Byleth stiffen. Well now that's just adorable. Like a happy puppy getting pet. I am not, MFFH. Oh but she is adorable, isn't she? Dorothea agreed, before doing exactly that and petting Byleth's hair, making her face go scarlet. I should go check in with everyone else, the blushing Archbishop mumbled, before hurrying off, much to Yuri and Dorothea's obvious amusement. She really is the cutest, Dorothea teased, giggling. You're not wrong, Yuri agreed, before following after his boss, not wrong at all. It was interesting, watching Byleth as she went around. She had started to get a hold of being calm and composed, but she was clearly far more relaxed when it came to being around her students. Almost made him wonder just how things would have been if she was his professor at the academy. For a brief moment, he wondered if he might have been willing to tell her his real name, before he discarded that thought. If he ever did want to, he would. For now though, he would be Yuri. Hi Casper, Linhard, glad to see you two are ready, Byleth said, smiling at the two friends. Heck yeah I am. Can't wait to show my dad how strong I've gotten. Ugh, don't remind me, Linhard grumbled. If your dad hadn't gotten called for this, my dad wouldn't have sent me a letter telling me to join. I have a feeling Edelgard would have had you join regardless, Byleth said with an amused smile. Probably, but she's not as annoying as my dad. Almost, but not as much. Come on Lin, this is our chance to prove ourselves as heroes. You can be a hero, I'd rather be an unsung scholar who gets to nap in between reading. Huh? I get the scholar part, but why would you want to be unsung? Because being famous means people expect things from me. Well I can understand that much, Byleth said as she laughed slightly. Though, if it helps, once things are done you can study my crest. And what crest is that? The crest of flames. He paused, then frowned. I can tell when someone is trying to bait me. She held up a hand and let her crest form, glowing violet above her palm. I didn't say it wasn't working. Good, and don't worry, you're on support. You probably won't have to see any fighting. Linhard losing his nerve because of blood in Shambhala of all places was definitely a recipe for disaster. Well I suppose there's a silver lining there. Ah, but I wanted to fight alongside you, Casper complained with a slight huff, before Byleth bade them farewell. Okay that was half her class, now who to check in with? I must be admitting Bernadetta, you do not seem much like a rabbit now. She overheard Petra say as she talked with the skittish archer. Oh, well, I've been trying to change myself for the better. It won't be long before I'm known as the bear. But you are not as large as a bear. Oh, you be Byleth. Bernadetta called out as she saw her friend. Do I get called the bear because I get big and burly? For a brief moment, Byleth's mind conjured the image of Bernadetta as tall and muscular as her father. She tried her best not to laugh. And no, that's not it. Though you do get taller. She was actually a bit taller than Byleth was at the moment as well. Blinking, Byleth started to realize that Casper was starting to have his growth spurt as well. Well, at least Petra and Edelgard were still a bit shorter, right? She could tell Petra was definitely shorter, but she was starting to realize she and Edelgard were at eye level when they stood next to each other. Did getting rid of the Agarthans really help relieve her stress that much that she was able to grow a few inches? That was different. Byleth was aware she wasn't especially tall, especially when she had her downright large dad to compare herself to, but she was used to thinking of herself as taller than some people. She remembered having a similar sense of disconnect after her 5 years asleep, when she saw how different her students were, but this was hitting in an unexpected way. Perhaps you are a bear because you appear cute and fluffy but are ferocious, Petra offered, making Bernadetta blink. Fluffy? Wait, cute. Bernadetta squeaked as her face turned pink. You are very cute, Byleth said, nodding in agreement, and getting Bernadetta's face to burn. I am not actually called the bear because I'm cute, right? No, you're not called the bear because you're cute, Byleth reassured, though you are cute. Well, that's fine. Because I'm going to prove that I'm worthy of that title. Bernie Bear's gonna win the day. Yes you are. Petra encouraged with a bright smile, before perking up even further, somehow, oh. We should have a hunt. You shall become a bear. Bernie blinked. Wait, how? Curiously, she didn't sound anxious like usual but actually intrigued. My apologies, my explaining was not the best. It is a tradition in Brigid, to hunt a beast and then mark the body to show you have done so. This will be showing that you are as strong as a bear. That sounds like it could be fun. Though we should probably wait till after the mission, not sure how easy it would be to find a bear around here, Byleth murmured, before nodding. I'll make sure to inform Edelgard so she knows about your plans. Why yeah, okay. Thank you, Byleth. Bernadetta replied, nodding back to the Archbishop, who smiled happily at the thanks. You're going to put her up against a bear? Yuri asked as he followed Byleth away from the pair of eagles. Or, well, an eagle and a bear, he supposed. No? She said she wanted to hunt one. I'm not going to force her to do anything, Byleth said with a frown. Besides, Petra will be with her, so if she changes her mind, she can lead her away. If you say so, Yuri replied, a bit amused as they approached the last members of the Eagles, talking with one another. Surely you must see the benefit to this idea, Hubert. Ferdinand asked with a smirk on his face. Benefit or not, the question remains of just how exactly this plan could be put in place, especially with how occupied Her Majesty is. Well, you see, that's where I come in. You see, our dear friend Shay here gave me the brilliant idea that I should be the one to talk with the minor nobles, in order to see who might be willing to support her and who might end up being thorns in her side, Ferdinand explained as he gestured at Shay, the mercenary smiling in response. And that is when I was blessed with my own idea. You see, while I talk with those nobles, I can also investigate them for corruption. Yes, I might not have been able to find anything about my father, but surely the minor nobles would have a harder time hiding their evidence of corruption, which may even link up to something my father did. He does make a good point there, as loath as I am to admit it, Monica said with a frown. The workers of House Vestra are stretched rather thin at the moment. Yet as far as I see, this idea of yours is all just talk. If you want Lady Edelgard to spend even a moment of her time on this, I would need more than just your word, Hubert stated with his usual glower. I must say, it's funny to see you giving your support to Ferdinand, Hubert, Byleth commented as she walked closer, well aware that this was all Hubert speak for thinking Ferdinand actually had a decent idea. Speaking of, what exactly is the idea? I think you have misunderstood my words, Lady Eisner. Sure. So Ferdinand, what's your idea? Well, I want to start establishing schools in the Empire to help teach commoners. There are not many educational institutions in Fodlan, and those that are around are for nobles. Surely you can see the advantage to this. Oh, yes, I do. I was actually thinking of making the academy easier for commoners to join, but it would still only be able to take so many at a time. Opening more schools would be wonderful. See Hubert? Now I have the support of the Archbishop. I mean, to be fair, she kinda seems like the type to support you if you ask nicely, Shay muttered. No, I'm not, Byleth denied with a pout. Yeah, you are, Shay argued. So Monica, how are you? Byleth said, deciding to talk to the final member of the group, whose face turned pink at her sudden attention. Which wasn't really a reaction the Archbishop expected. I am perfectly fine and you have no reason to be speaking to me, so you should attend to other business. I am not intending that to be offensive, I am merely saying there are better things to be focused on and you should do them with all due haste instead. Byleth blinked. Oh, okay. I guess that's a good point. Though we should talk later, it would definitely be a good idea for you to be near the front line while we launch the attack, since your memory will be useful when it comes to examining all the things they have down there. Actually, it might be a good idea for you to be in the same team as Edelgard and I. Monica's face warmed up even more. Why you want me, with Lady Edelgard? Yes? I think it would be good if we all teamed up. Me, you, and Lady Edelgard. Monica? Are you okay? Byleth asked, a bit concerned as she saw Monica stare off into the distance. Would she be okay for the mission? It'll probably be fine. Kronia of Agartha was a simple girl. She was built for combat, built for killing, her body specifically designed for the art of murder, and she wanted was to prove her worth to Thales, the great sage of light and the leader of her people. And to do that, she needed to accomplish missions. Missions that usually involved hunting someone down, either because they turned traitor or had something Thales wanted. And she did great. She never failed a mission. Her prestige rose and Thales even trusted her with a truly important one. That's when things turned south. All Kronia needed to do was guard that red-haired beast until it was time to replace her. Sure, she could have just replaced the beast right away, but then that would mean walking around in the skin of a beast for far longer than she needed. So she kept the beast locked away and made sure her goons kept her fed and secure so she wouldn't die before it was time to replace her. Then that wayward princess decided to screw things up completely. She led her sage-damned classmates on an assault on her fort and rescued the beast. To make matters worse, Kronia was forced to flee before she could take one of them out because of that violet-haired bitch. Who the hell even was that? And why the hell did she have those powers? All the hard work Kronia had put in didn't matter for shit now that she'd failed. She could hear the mockery when she returned to Shamhala. Those filthy laborers thought they were quiet, but she could hear contempt for the warrior that failed. Fucking leeches, it didn't matter though, she was still elite, she'd just cut them down if they tried anything. At least, that's what she had thought until Thales returned. Lord Thales, what are you doing here? She heard some no-name say in surprise, instantly getting her attention as she rushed to meet him. Lord Thales was all she managed to say before Thales blasted her with a miasma. The young Agarthan collapsed as the dark magic filled her lungs, making her gasp in pain. Why was the Oaks girl fighting alongside my weapon? Thales demanded to know with a scowl. Edelgard launched an assault, Kronia gasped out, clutching her throat and trying to breathe as she writhed on the floor. She took her dash. And why didn't you stop her? There was an Agarthan on her side. I couldn't stop her. Kronia shouted before descending into a coughing fit as the miasma only seemed to grow. Lord Thales, please. Not deeming her worthy of another word, he dismissed the magic, before looking back at the no-name. Get Myson. That rebellious brat has driven us from Inbar and we'll need to adapt. Oh of course, Lord Thales. The Agarthan replied before rushing off. Thales watched for a moment, a scowl on his face, before his expression turned more thoughtful and he began to make his way to the center of Shambhala, leaving Kronia to recover her breath while she curled up on the floor. The pain wasn't the worst part. It was knowing that she had disappointed Thales. All the work she had put in meant nothing if a single screw-up threw that all away. Growling, she slammed her fist onto the ground. She'd get her revenge, no matter what. The next few months weren't any better for her. No longer was she sent on missions to the surface. She had to stay underground, as if she wasn't special or worthy to help Thales anymore. She still heard about what was happening up above as the laborers and lesser warriors spread rumors among themselves. About the beasts that were now in charge of their nations. A part of her was amused to hear that Cleobulus had lost her place after that false king died. Though unlike Kronia, she didn't even have the decency to return to Shambhala, and just hid in the kingdom. Though all that fell to the side when she heard the biggest rumor of all. Of a girl blessed by the goddess. It didn't take long for word to spread, about the young girl who supposedly was another member of the Abomination's ilk. Even more so when she was set to replace that white beast as the ruler of the church. More and more word spread, until finally someone dared to utter those words. Felstar. She knew about the legends, about the abomination that came from the sky. The one who forced her people underground. She didn't believe the legends, and really, it didn't matter if they were true. Maybe there was some queen abomination back in the day, one big enough to be a threat, but a fucking god? Bullshit. It didn't matter anyway. Her job was to kill who she was pointed at. She felt bitter that she wasn't chosen to assassinate the new archbishop when she traveled down to the Empire. Thales chose to contact the few agents back on the surface instead to carry out the plan. They, unsurprisingly, failed. When word reached Shamhala that the spawn of the Felstar had also left the monastery, Thales immediately began to plan on another attack. It might have been shameless, but she begged to be allowed to be on the mission, one chance to prove herself to him again, to be able to be out in the sun again. Her black heart soared when he allowed her to go. She wouldn't fail this time, she would prove to Thales that she was worthy. And now she was in a prison cell. If she was the poetic type, she might have found some irony in the situation. She wasn't, so she just shouted curses whenever anyone came nearby. That was how she spent her days, her hands manacled, her feet chained to the wall, wearing some stupid, scratchy tunic, and trying to feel her tails through the chains binding them, up until she heard a voice coming down the hallway outside her cell. The young Agarthan scowled, her eyes narrowing as she moved closer to the wall, unwilling to let any of those assholes get close. Admit, I am unsure of what you expect to get out of her. She recognized that voice. It was the voice of the Emperor's toady. It's just something I need to do, said a different voice, one she hadn't heard before. Though it became clear who it was once they approached her cell, her green hair almost glowing down here. Very well, but keep in mind that the Emperor hasn't slated her for execution, yet. So don't expect me to allow you to do away with her. That's not. She sighed, before glancing at Kronia, her eyes hardening for a moment. Can you open the cell? Regardless of your ability, surely you see the danger in that. Fine, she said with another sigh, before stepping closer, her green eyes staring down at the imprisoned Agarthan. You're Kronia. And why should I fucking answer you? That wasn't a question. I know who you are. I know what you did. I know what you're going to do. Well shit, I guess I must be worse at my job than I thought if some random bitch knows who I am, she taunted, unwilling to play along with her bullshit. The robed woman took in a deep, clearly trying to calm herself. I'm told that they haven't had much luck asking you questions, but that doesn't matter. I know you were going to replace Monica von Oaks, so that you could keep an eye on Edelgard at the academy. Make sure she doesn't stray too far, keep the leash tight. You were going to taunt her by acting innocent, as if you just wanted to spend time with the house leader, all while driving a wedge between her and everyone else. You tore us apart by killing my father. Whatever retort Kronia had died in her throat as those dead eyes met hers. I'm going to Shamhala, and I'm going to destroy that city. If there are any willing to surrender, you'll have company down here. Thales will not be joining you down here. I want you to know that no matter what, Thales will be dead before I return. Oh yeah? And who are you supposed to be? Kronia asked, cursing herself for that slight stutter. My name is Byleth Eisner. I'm the new Archbishop of the Church of Syros. Your people know me as the Felstar. Whatever the bitch in front of her expected, it definitely wasn't for Kronia to audibly scoff, burying down the brief fear she'd felt under a rush of anger. Oh bullshit you are. Is that what you're going for, huh? You want to be the big, scary Felstar? Just terrify the prisoners with a stupid myth and think it'll all go good for you? Fuck you. I don't even remember killing your dad, but I bet he squealed like a pig. The woman let out a slow sigh. And then she was in the cell with Kronia. The Agarthan stiffened, stumbling back, as did the Emperor's toady as he reached down into his pocket, the key that used to be there gone. Lady Eisner, get out of that cell now. You can scold me later, Hubert, Byleth said, her dead eyes still boring into Kronia. What was that about a myth? That Felstar shit. Everyone knows that's just a horror story, so don't even try to pretend. Horror story, Byleth said, after a moment of silence. Kronia didn't expect her to start laughing. A mirthless, horrifying laughter. You don't even believe in that? Your people's greatest enemy and you don't even think it's real. Why should I believe that horseshit? You don't even know why you're fighting. All this time, I knew you weren't that smart, but... She laughed again. Have any of you ever tried just living normally? Just live on the surface without trying to murder everyone up there. Those traitors are dealt with, by me. The sages are above all else, so it doesn't matter if that myth is true or not, we follow their orders. Goddess, you're just... She took a breath, then moved closer to Kronia, who backed up on instinct. Those sages, they're real. Of course they're real. They're the leaders of... Kronia bit her tongue, glaring at the bitch who'd managed to rattle her enough to nearly spill. So that would be Thales and Solon then. Maybe that woman in the kingdom too. Kronia tried to think. There shouldn't be any way some random bitch, no, she said she was the new archbishop. One of the abominations leading the beasts. It didn't make sense that she knew about Thales or Solon, but it made a little bit more sense in that light. And the fact that she didn't know Cleobulus's name proved she didn't know everything. And you believe in them. You think they care about you. That they wouldn't throw you away the instant killing you benefited them more than keeping you alive. She nearly snarled, but she wasn't about to rise to the abomination's provocations. She was better than that. Do you want to know what would have happened if you succeeded in taking Monica's place? You would have shown up after Jaritza abducted Flayn, pretending to be her, acting like Edelgard's best friend and failing at it because you're a horrible actor who doesn't know anything about how someone would act after being held captive for an entire damn year. She paused, then glanced around the cell. I guess you'll get some practice now. Fuck you, she growled, before stiffening when the abomination fixed her with that same dead gaze again. Though, now it seemed like there was something predatory in it. I tried to be a good teacher to you. I wanted to help, though you didn't even try to involve yourself in anything. And you repaid me by stabbing my father in the back when I couldn't fix it, when I wasted so many attempts trying to keep everyone safe from the monsters you let loose, and I didn't even get to kill you because that piece of shit you call Solon ripped your heart out for that fucking void spell of his and I had to lose Suthies to escape it. Her voice raised for a moment, before it turned cold again. I split that bulbous head of his open afterwards, but that wasn't even satisfying. You died, begging me for help, and I actually pitied you. Stupid of me, I know, but you just looked so very pathetic. The venom in her voice made Kronia shiver involuntarily, before she shook her head, trying to fight for that anger again. Stop lying to me. You can't, Solon wouldn't do that to me. She moved right up to Kronia and grabbed her by the hair, forcing her to meet her eyes as she glared down at her. Tell me you genuinely think Solon wouldn't sacrifice the life of a miserable failure for a shot at killing the Fell Star. I am not a failure, Kronia insisted, unable to look away from the Fell Stars, the abomination's burning gaze. She could feel the lie crumble even as she spoke it. She tried to summon up some anger or defiance, but she couldn't seem to grasp it properly. He wouldn't, and not to me. I'm special. I'm loyal. I've fought, all my life, I've accomplished my missions. They don't just let anyone see the sun. Thales would only save you if he thought you had some use left. Solon would kill you painfully without a second thought if it would benefit him. You would do the same to anyone below you. So tell me, what do you think awaits you when they find out you failed again? Let go of me. Her grip just tightened further. Tell me. Thales wouldn't let dash. Thales would destroy all of Shamhala if it meant killing me. He rained down the javelins of light on the city even when there were still people on his side still alive. Everyone is disposable to him. He doesn't care about bringing his people back up, he just wants his vengeance. Her grip loosened. That's all those sages want. They'll ruin every life they can as long as they can get vengeance against someone they already killed. Not just those on the surface, but their own as well. Kronia hated those eyes full of pity. She wanted them to be hateful. She wanted to see anger in them again. The fact that she was being looked at like she was some kind of victim. The Felstar took a breath, slow and steady, like she was human. She stared down at Kronia, who hadn't even felt her legs give out. How old are you? Kronia couldn't form the words even if she wanted to. Her eyes felt wet. I've hated you for so long, and all this time, you're probably just a child compared to them. Have you ever actually seen any of the Nabateans? Do you even have any interests besides killing? Were you even allowed to have a life? Byleth asked, an odd desperation to her voice. Goddess, how many of you are even allowed out of the city? Does anyone even matter to your sages? What even is their plan for after they win? Just go around killing more and more until the only ones left to kill is each other. We're going to reclaim our world, she murmured hoarsely, her voice choked with unexpected emotion. No. You're not. I don't think you even know what to do with it if you did. She turned away and unlocked the cell door again, exiting and looking at Hubert. Could you get her some more blankets? It might get cold down here. Comfort isn't exactly a priority in a dungeon. I know, but I can have it done. He regarded her quietly, a faint interest in his gaze. Are you going to be able to lead the attack as intended? Yes. I'm not about to let the pity I feel stop me from putting an end to monsters like Thales and Solon. She looked back at Kronia, before shaking her head again. I think I'm going to spend some time with my papa. As you wish. Hubert held out a hand. Oh, right. She gave him the key, then went on her way as he watched her leave. Hubert turned his gaze back towards the cell. More specifically, towards the door the Archbishop had left open, and Kronia, who hadn't moved an inch. Effective. No wonder her people were so terrified of the goddess. Chapter 40, The Assault on Shamhala. When it came to the proper day of attack, Byleth was fully prepared. She had her sword, she had her shield, and she had her armor. Granted, she didn't usually fight with a shield, but she knew how to use one and she could use the extra protection, and the armor she was wearing was a lot more covering than she was really used to. It was actually pretty similar to Catherine's, just with black leather instead of brown, and, honestly, it wasn't bad, it's just that she didn't really like the style. Kind of felt too tight on her chest. Is it weird that this armor has boobs? She abruptly asked Shay, who was riding beside her. What? I guess? I dunno, you have huge tits, so I guess it makes sense to have room for them. Well, now she felt kind of self-conscious. You used to go around in a cleavage-bearing top and booty shorts, why are you getting embarrassed? Hey, those clothes are cute. This isn't cute. No, I'm not gonna argue with you about this, this is a stupid thing to argue about. That, and she didn't want to keep picturing the Ashen Demon in tiny shorts. That was not something she wanted stuck in her head while going into battle. You like wearing shorts? Dorothea asked, having overheard their conversation from where she was riding with Happy. Oh yeah, Chatterbox likes showing off all the time. Don't say it like that, Byleth complained, her face turning a little pink. You make it sound like I'm running around wearing nothing. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't either, Dorothea agreed, smiling as Byleth turned even redder. Alright, can we stop talking about the ash, about Byleth being naked? That's not something I want to be distracted with going into a fight, Shay complained, which really didn't help Byleth's growing embarrassment. Further ahead of them, a certain former archbishop, who was wearing a facsimile of the armor she once wore as Ciro's and who happened to have decent hearing, sighed deeply and glanced towards her old friend. Are we sure we can't send Byleth back to Inver? I would prefer she not be involved with all of this. You can try, Gerald replied, though I think you'll have about as much luck as I would if I tried to get you to go back. Why would you? I am a better warrior than you are. I'm not going to argue with you about that, just like you shouldn't argue with Byleth. Besides, just because I know you're strong doesn't mean I want to put you in danger. I do still care about you. Oh. Well, thank you. Nearby, a faintly amused Shamir made a note of how many people overheard it and added them to the tally of people who are convinced Rhea and Geralt were a thing. And they wonder why people think they dated, Eloise muttered beside her, obviously amused too. Don't think that yourself. I met Citrai in the past, though I was unaware of her relation to Lady Rhea. It does make me wonder how she would react to all of this. I hope she wouldn't be too green with envy. She had green hair? Indeed. Ah. Shamir just nodded. Sometimes, that was the only way to deal with Eloise. At the front of the march, Edelgard couldn't help the nerves that were crawling under her skin. Try as she might, the energy in her wouldn't calm down. Are you okay, Your Majesty? Monica asked, a bit of worry in her voice. I am just, anxious I suppose would be the word. I never thought I'd hear that you admit that, Your Majesty, Hubert said in his usual tone. A year ago I would have never done so. Yet a year ago I never thought I would take the risk to save Monica and drive out the Agarthans. Even then, I never thought I would have the chance to strike back against the Agarthans until I was much older, Edelgard admitted as she tightened her grip on the reins. Yet here we are. Yes, I suppose we have the new Archbishop to thank. She really is quite the strange one. She is, yes. Very strange, she murmured, resisting the urge to look back at the Archbishop in question. She had to look forward now and keep her eyes on the future. Ah, it looks like we're getting close. Edelgard stiffened, years of training and practice thankfully preventing her from yelping in fright at the sudden sound of Byleth's voice as the Archbishop rode up beside her. Lady Eisner, you're supposed to stay in your place in the formation, Hubert pointed out, apparently unfazed by Byleth's strange ability to be stealthy while on a horse. Ah, well, I thought it would be better for the two leaders to be together for this moment, Byleth explained, leaving out the part where she wanted to get away from her friend's teasing. Best we discuss any last-minute changes we might have, right? Do you have something you want to change about the plan? Ah. Byleth thought for a moment. No. She briefly wondered if getting teased was worse than the discomfort she was feeling at getting blankly stared at. At least when she was getting teased, it was kind of affectionate. Do you? She asked, trying to fill the silence. No. Oh, okay then. I'm glad we figured that out. The silence was somehow even more uncomfortable when it returned. Well, it's not like they need to talk. All they needed to do was be ready for what was to come. Byleth let out a slow breath, keeping her eyes forward. No matter what happened, she was going to make sure Thales died today. Not all shared her determination though, as Shay noticed Arvel had a conflicted look on their face. Frowning, Shay began to walk slower to get some space to talk with them. Is everything okay? I'm not sure, something about this feels wrong, Arvel mentioned, keeping an eye on Byleth. As if we shouldn't be doing this. You sure there, buddy? I mean, I get it'll be dangerous, but those guys are pretty bad, right? I don't think that's why. Whatever happens, partner, make sure not to let your guard down. Heh, of course, after all, I still gotta beat Byleth, right? Shay said with a grin. Though, I'm not sure about killing her anymore. Feels weird to try to kill someone dating my friend, yeah? Especially since Dorothea seems to really like her. Arvel could only frown. They refrained from saying anything, but, for some reason they felt like they had to stop that line of thought. As if siding with the Ashen Demon would be the worst thing imaginable. The Agarthans of Shambhala had never thought to set sentries outside of their hidden city. The city was hidden, after all, and the act of setting guards could draw unwanted attention, so those who hid within the ancient city did so with a sense of superiority, secure in the fact that their greatest base was unknown to all and could never be discovered by the beasts that had stolen the surface from them. Which meant when their base was discovered and invaded by the combined forces of the Knights of Syros and the Imperial Army, those who slithered in the dark were caught completely flat-footed. What's going on? Thales demanded to know as he suddenly heard the sounds of battle in Shambhala. Who is attacking? Sir, the Imperial Army and the Knights of Syros are invading. A lesser Agarthan reported, they're being led by the Archbishop and the Emperor. What? How did the spawn of the Fell Star discover us? And why is that foolish girl working with her? There's also reports that someone wielding the sword of the Creator is among the invaders. No matter. Tell Ilan he is to lead the counter-attack. Have Bias and Pitacus unleash the Titanus and activate the Viscom. Thales ordered. The idiot hesitated, so Thales sent a dark spike through his chest before looking to the next nearest plebeian. Lord Thales, Lady Bias, and Lady Pitacus were imprisoned under your orders, sir, the mage quickly shouted as an explanation, prompting a scowl from Thales. Then let them out and have them get to work. The slightly smarter Agarthan peon hurried to do his leader's bidding while Thales turned. Thales, there you are. With a scowl, Thales looked to see Solon approaching him. Come, we must retreat. Retreat? We're being invaded and you dare suggest that? I refuse to let this transgression pass. We are going to fight back and we will end these invaders for daring to attack us. He turned away from Solon. Activate the Viscom, and increase their output as high as it can get. Thales, you fool. If we do that, all of Shamhala will dash. Solon was cut off as Thales turned back around and grabbed him by the front of his robes, snarling straight into his face. I am the Agastya of Agartha. You shall listen to my commands or I will put you and your craven apprentices to death. I don't care if this entire city lies in ruin by the end of this battle, I will never flee from the fell star. He spat, over a millennia of resentment and outrage boiling over all at once. As you command. Yanking himself away from Thales, Solon scowled as his leader stalked away, barking orders at the soldiers and technicians closest to them. Agastya or not, it was clear Thales was fully prepared to die for the sake of his vengeance. Solon, on the other hand, was not. He wanted revenge against the false god like any other Agarthan, but he wasn't going to let that cloud his judgment. In order to correct the ruin of their world, the Agarthan people still had to survive. It was with that in mind that he went straight to the cells. He had allowed Thales' nonsense for too long to begin with. Imprisoning Bias and Pitacus simply because they chose to retreat. It was hypocritical madness, given how the fool fled when his Flame Emperor turned her blade towards him. There was no shame in retreat, not when it meant surviving to strike again. The cells in Shamhala were rarely used. Torturing and or executing a subordinate for failure was generally accepted as a punishment among the upper echelons of their society and criminals were even less tolerated, so the only real reason to have them was for experiments or the occasional rebellious asset that couldn't be killed. Such as a pair of sages who had elected to retreat rather than die to an unexpected threat. Bias, Pitacus, get up. We're leaving, Solon ordered as he undid the locks to his apprentices' cells with a wave of his hand. Leaving. Pitacus repeated, her tone confused as she lowered the tablet she had been reading from. Technically contraband, but it wasn't as though Solon was going to leave her without work to do. Oh good, a new assignment. I was getting bored, Bias added, getting up from the bed she'd been lazing on, so what are we doing now? We are leaving, as I said. The enemy is in Shamhala and Thales intends to die with his pride, Solon elaborated, letting the contempt he felt for the fool seep into his words. What? Why are we leaving? Pitacus exclaimed. Because I do not intend to die here. If you want to sit here waiting for their blades, then do so, but I shall not be at your side, Solon stated, before turning around and leaving. Come on, Pitacus, Bias said, getting up to follow their mentor. Bias, you can't be serious. We can't just leave our people to die. We were going to be left here to rot if Solon didn't come for us. If you're that worried, then set off the alarm, but I don't want either of us to die down here. Fine. We can at least turn on some of the Titanus before we leave, Pitacus decided as she followed along with her sister. As they left, Bias felt the scar on her chest ache. The pain reminded her of the fell star, how eager she seemed to kill them. And yet right before she could, how she hesitated. It was laughable really, to pity your enemy like she did, yet Bias had to admit, some part of her wanted to know why. Not enough to risk her life, but, well, if Thales managed to survive, he'd probably be a fountain of information. Shame she knew he was far too stubborn to surrender. As they ran, Bias couldn't help but chuckle. Thales really was far too stupid to be their leader. It was strange. Byleth had only been to Shambhala once before, yet she readily recognized every part of the underground city. The black metal of floors and walls, lined with strange blue lights, almost like rivers cutting through the land, was already starting to stain with blood as she cut her way through the mages and warriors in front of her. "Careful! Those towers can launch bolts of magic," she called out to the soldiers around as they pushed their way towards the massive structure at the center of the city. "The people controlling them should be in those smaller buildings, strike there first." "You're certainly used to giving orders," Hubert noted as he launched a bolt of dark magic at a nearby Agarthan on horseback, blasting their head apart as the horse reared back. "Say, how in the world are they keeping steeds down here? I doubt a horse would be especially happy to be kept underground." "Is that really what you're focusing on?" Monica griped while using a mix of fire and ice magic to scatter a group of Agarthan soldiers attempting a counter-attack. "It is a point of interest, don't you think?" "Sure, but you sound like Linhard, talking about random points of interest in the middle of a fight." "Ah, true. Perhaps I am simply feeling light-hearted at the moment, given we're finally eliminating these wretched monsters hiding in the Empire." He smirked, before unleashing a stronger torrent of dark magic at an armored Agarthan trying to charge them. "This retribution has been a long time coming, after all." "Humph. For once, we can agree on something," Monica muttered, then sent a spike of ice through an enemy archer's eye to punctuate her statement. "This is way more cathartic than the last time," Byleth agreed, casting a fireball to collide against a swarm spell being sent their way, before the mage in question received a blade through the chest when Shay tossed her sword at them. "So am I the only one who thinks this place is super creepy?" Shay asked as her sword reappeared in her hand so she could deflect an enemy's slash. "Because you guys are being really casual. Our sense of elation is helping us ignore that," Edelgard responded, swinging her axe hard enough to cleave through a group of soldiers. Idly, Byleth couldn't help but note that the axe, while very fancy, wasn't the one she remembered her wielding during the war. "Hey, so is Aimer something the Imperial household owns, or was that supposed to be something you get from the Agarthans?" "Aimer?" Edelgard asked, only pausing for a moment as she blocked a lance thrust, right before the attacker in question got cut down by the sword of the Creator. "Guess it's the latter. And it's a relic weapon, though not one of the main ones." "I think the Agarthans made more?" "Not entirely sure, especially since I'm pretty sure the stone had the crest of Maurice on it instead of Ciro's, which does make sense because Ria's still alive, but it's still pretty weird." Byleth paused for a moment as she punched an Agarthan rushing at her with a dagger. "Don't mess with relic weapons if it's not your crest, okay?" "I did not plan on doing so," Edelgard responded, wondering just how many more odd things Byleth would end up saying. "Okay, good. That stuff can turn you into a demonic beast." "It what?" "Yeah, it's freaky stuff. Saw it happen to Sylvain's brother, Miklon." Byleth paused again. "Hey, I understand what you meant by it, Edelgard, but using Miklon as your example for someone without a crest being a good leader isn't good since he was an asshole, and was born into a noble house where being a commander was literally beaten into him. It was never going to end, was it? Can we just defeat the enemies in front of us before you complain about my future self's failures?" "I mean, it wasn't really a failure, just kind of a bad remark to make." Actually, thinking about it, she considered while cleaving through an armored Agarthan's head, doesn't the nobility system as a whole offer advantages outside of crests? Crests are the basis for it, but nobles also get training, education, and are allowed to hold positions that commoners. "Yes, you are correct and I agree on your points, but also we are in the middle of a fight," Edelgard reminded, raising her shield to catch a fireball, "so please keep your focus on that." "Ah, right, okay," Byleth paused once more, though this time it wasn't to make another remark about future events. No, this time it was because all the weird, blue lines on the ground suddenly turned red and a loud noise started blaring through the underground city. "What is that?" Edelgard asked, bringing up her shield in case of any surprise attacks. "This is new," Byleth muttered, before her eyes widened as she saw some Agarthans stiffen at the loud noise, before running away. "Some kind of command," Hubert mused as he kept a spell ready. Do you guys not understand that?" Shay asked, a bit confused as she looked around trying to find the source of the sound. "Why would we?" Monica asked, vaguely aware that the noise seemed to be repeating something. "It's saying warning," Shay muttered, as she tried to focus. specifically I think it's saying to evacuate because of intruders. They're retreating. That was definitely new. Thales destroyed this city last time and this wasn't set off. What caused the change? Not all of them, Monica noted as she looked at a squad of armored soldiers. Oh, that's one of the important guys, Byleth noted, pointing towards a mounted Agarthan in what could easily be recognized as the armor of a great knight, who was surrounded by a squadron of mages and wielding a bolt axe. Thales is going to be inside the building he's guarding. I'm guessing he did so the last time. Yes. At least, he should be in there. She really didn't like how things were changing. Shaking her head, she focused on the knight. Just some advice, when we fight Thales we have to make sure he doesn't think he's cornered, or else he'll use the javelins. And don't drag out the fight. You mentioned, Edelgard responded, before raising her shield to block a bolt of magic lightning from the Great Knight, making her body tense up from the shock. Frowning, Byleth wondered if she should use a charge. Thales was just on the other side and she'd still have 2 left. Accursed beasts, this is as far as you go. None shall touch Thales so long as I dash was about as far as he got before an arrow suddenly sunk into his eye and pierced his brain, narrowly hitting the opening in his armor. Blinking in surprise, Byleth briefly wondered who attacked him as the knight slumped forward. Good job, Bernadetta. She heard Petra call out as Bernie let out a sound that was both full of anxiety and cheer at having taken down an enemy general. Huh. I knew getting her a killer bow would be handy, Byleth commented as the remaining Agarthans panicked at their leader's sudden demise. El Lordilin, one of the mages yelped, before their line was abruptly blindsided by a cavalry charge led by none other than I am Ferdinand von Aegir. Well, I suppose that's them handled, Hubert noted, before turning his gaze towards the wildly sparking towers near the main structure. Eisner, were those like that in your visions? No, they glowed, but they were launching beams at people. Not, Byleth blinked when one outright exploded, sending debris flying across the underground city. One chunk even bounced off her shield, though better that than her head. Yeah, this is all really different. I don't know what changed. Something to look into then, Edelgard decided, striding forward towards the center building. So, does anyone else think that guy was going to have a big speech or something? Shay asked, pointing at Ellen's body. Kinda seemed like he was going to lead to something big there. Is now really the time, Shay? Monica asked. Hey, I'm just curious. Shay said with a huff. I guess I just wanted to see if anyone down here might have any idea on my powers. I mean, they're similar, right? Glancing over at Shay, Byleth took a few moments to think. Yes, her powers seemed Agarthan, but the way she acted, and how clueless she seemed, Kronia mentioned that anyone who abandoned Shambhala was a traitor, and dealt with. Maybe Shay's parents were traitors who managed to survive? She could figure it out later. For now, she had to focus as she stepped into the central chamber of Shambhala's main building. You miserable filth, came the low, furious voice of Agartha's leader, Agastya Thales of the Nis. His empty eyes held nothing but rage and contempt as he gazed down upon the invaders from his dais. It seems I am fated to be surrounded by disgusting beasts and craven traitors. Yet none are worse than you, Edelgard. To think you'd end up becoming a feral dog and side with the Fell Star. Tightening her grip on her axe, Edelgard aimed it up at him. I am fully sound of mind as I do this, Thales. Today is the day you pay for your crimes against not just the Empire, but all of Fodlan. You're the only one that's going to pay here. Thales screamed as his guards rushed them. Moving to block them, Hubert, Monica, and Shay, left Edelgard and Byleth to charge the leader. Growling, Thales conjured up a barrier blocking the sword of the Creator as it extended towards him, before preparing a spell as Edelgard tried to ram him with her shield. To think I would have the chance to drain the blood from your body myself, Fellstar. Save the threats for when I'm not carving you into pieces. Byleth shouted in response, her eyes scanning the room as she looked for something in specific. Swinging her sword as Thales cast a death spell towards her, the Archbishop smirked as her eyes landed on something behind him. I'll make sure you suffer for the rest of your dash. Hey, so this wasn't important, right? Byleth asked with a mocking tone, getting Thales to stiffen as she had appeared behind him. Whirling around, he found her standing over a destroyed array. You fool, what have you done? Distracted you. Was all Byleth said before Thales felt a burning sensation as his right arm was lopped off and cauterized by Edelgard's blazing axe. Miserable beasts, this city shall be your tomb. Thales shouted, as a barrier appeared before Edelgard could finish him off. He began to laugh, glaring directly at the beast that ruined 1,000 years of planning. You fool! You think you'll survive this? The Viscom will overload soon enough, so even without my bombardment, all of you will be buried in the ruins of this city. Then you'll die with us, Edelgard growled, glaring straight at him. Ha! You stupid brat! You may have taken my arm, but it will take 1,000 strikes before this barrier falls. There was a faint shattering sound, and Thales blinked as he noticed his other arm was missing now. It actually took about 12, Byleth noted, her sword gleaming with light. Thales looked back at her, his mouth agape, before he abruptly choked as an axe was buried straight into his ribs. His empty eyes stared, seeing yet uncomprehending as Edelgard glared into the pale depths, before pulling the axe across his chest, splitting his sternum apart. The Agasthya of Agartha choked, black blood spilling from his mouth as he stumbled back. Wait. And then his head left his neck in one swift swing. You actually got him to start begging. Good job, I didn't make him do that last time around, Byleth noted as she stared down at his corpse. Though her attention was dragged away as she heard Edelgard drop her axe and fall to her knees. Edelgard? Are you okay? Moving closer, she grabbed the trembling Edelgard, only to stop as she heard the Emperor begin to laugh. Joy ran through her body at finally getting rid of the monster that had ruined not only her life, but so many others as well. For the first she felt like she could allow herself to be happy. Smiling in response, Byleth began to laugh as well, feeling a weight come off her shoulders at Thales's death. Up until she was cut off by Edelgard pulling her in close to kiss her. Eyes widening in shock, Byleth felt herself falling onto her back as Edelgard pressed up against her, throwing caution to the wind in a moment of joyful passion. Then Hubert cleared his throat and both of them stiffened. While I appreciate that you two are having a moment, we should probably, he paused as another explosion sounded out. Vacate the premises. Yeah, I don't think it'd be hygienic to make out on some old dude's dead body, Shay mentioned, before glancing at Monica. You okay, Monica? Your nose is bleeding. I'm good. Alright, Byleth said, as Edelgard got up, both their faces a crimson red as they grabbed their weapons. To be fair, I can think of worse locations to kiss a loved one, Suthies teased as they ran, which definitely didn't help. Though, as they moved, Byleth couldn't help but glance at Edelgard, who glanced over at her at the same time. Despite how embarrassed she felt, Byleth felt herself calm down as the two smiled at one another. Now she just had to make sure Rhea and Geralt didn't find out. Check the description for the links to the author.